Essential Self-Care Podcast, a podcast for those of us who are, let's face it, too busy for self-care. In this podcast, you will hear real life stories from people who leaned into their self-care as they were navigating life's storms. You'll learn practical tips, tools, and strategies to incorporate self-care into your own busy life as well. You'll hear from expert guests sharing their expertise on specific tools and modalities of self-care to optimize your well-being in your life, career, and relationships. I'm your host, Dr. Sheetal Ajmani. I am a physician, best-selling author, and founder of Radiant Living Institute, where I guide high-achieving women to get unstuck and learn to live radiantly again through major life transitions. Quick disclaimer before we dive into the episode, please know that this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not medical advice. Always seek the advice of your own health practitioner or mental health provider for your specific situation. Now, let's get started. Sheetal Ajmani, I'm going to take a moment to introduce myself and then to introduce my guest, who I'm super excited about, who is sitting right here next to me. First of all, this is the first time I have done a live, in-person podcast recording with a live audience, so super thrilled to be here and being able to do this for the first time at the inaugural HiitFit Festival in Virginia Beach. So, as for a brief introduction, I'm Dr. Sheetal Ajmani. I am a physician. I'm a best-selling author. I'm the founder of Radiant Living Institute and the host of the Essential Self-Care Podcast, which is what we're recording an episode of today. My guest today is, you all know her and love her, Jasmin Jamison. Jasmin is the beloved founder of HiitMamaFit and today's HiitFit Festival that brought us all together here. She is a mama to two, business owner, doing all the things. And I wanted to share a little bit in her own words, and we're going to hear from her in her own words today. But in her own words, Jasmin describes that her mission is to empower women to be confident, fierce, and an alpha female through fitness, health, and wellness. She says, I lead without fear and work with my clients as we build a community to unite and build each other up to lead healthy and prosperous lives. Welcome to the Essential Self-Care Podcast, Jasmin.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This is my very first podcast. I've never done this before, so I'm pretty excited about doing it. Thank you for asking me to join you on this.
Absolutely. So today is a day of firsts, your first podcast, my first live podcast, and the first ever HiitFit Festival in Virginia Beach. Super exciting. So today, Jasmin, you're going to share a little bit about your self-care journey, which I'm excited to dive into. So can you share with us a time in your life where self-care became no longer an option, but an absolute priority for you? And more importantly, what did your journey look like from there? What sort of tools or modalities did you turn to on your self-care journey from there?
So my self-care journey didn't begin until around 2010, 2011, when I was getting out of a very toxic relationship. And so when I got out, I actually ended up moving back in with my parents, and my oldest son, he's back there, hey. He was about 3 or 4 at the time, and so I was looking at myself in the mirror, and I was like, I really don't like what I see, like inner and outer, to be honest with you. So then I just started actually using fitness as my modality. But I first started working out at Mount Trashmore. I didn't go to the gym, and so I would just walk around Mount Trashmore. And then where I was working at a hotel in downtown Norfolk, somebody told me to join the Y, and that's what I did. And that's where the fitness aspect, well, the strength training aspect came in. And from there, in about a year or two, I had lost almost 60 pounds when I started introducing strength training into it, and that's where all of that started, yeah.
That's incredible, Jasmin. So I always know that just the perfect thing is going to come out of whatever conversation I have, and what's meant to come out is going to come out. And I have to share and just reflect here a little bit, because it almost brought tears to my eyes just hearing you share the little bit that you've shared so far, because it was roughly around the same time that I exited a toxic relationship in my own life. And realized that the way I was talking to myself wasn't a very positive inner dialogue, that I was definitely my own harshest critic and very negative towards myself. And my self-care journey had started before then, but in many ways that experience and that realization really deepened my journey.
Yes.
Just kind of looking at that reflection as an opportunity to really look at that reflection of myself and what sort of things I wanted to change. So I just wanted to share that because I'm certain we're not the only two people who have experienced something like that, a situation like that, that may have triggered in some way or another either perhaps a deep dive into our own self-care journey. And often, one thing I always say is that life's challenges can be the greatest catalyst for self-empowerment. They're opportunities to learn so much more about ourselves. And so that sort of trigger, that challenge can be different in each of our lives. It just so happens that for both of us, we had a similar sort of catalyst for that. Right. But today I want to hear more about your journey. Folks can check out Essential Self-Care and some past episodes to learn a little bit more about my journey. But today I want to focus on yours. And it sounds like that this instance, this challenging situation for you really triggered, catapulted you into physical fitness as a major modality for self-care and well-being. And you mentioned in terms of physically, you mentioned that through that process, you found that you lost 60 pounds. What did that process do for you? Because I know, from my background, both as a physician as well as a mind-body practitioner, that the mind, the body, the emotions, it's all connected. So you mentioned a little bit about the benefits that you found physically. I'm curious, how did it help you, especially as you were navigating this season in your life, perhaps mentally or emotionally?
That built a lot of confidence within myself, because even before fitness, I was doing fashion. I went to ODU for fashion merchandising, so I was in that for a very long time. But I was actually able to get into a lot of the fashions that I was not comfortable being in at the time. So I remember going into Forever 21, and that was lit back then. But so I remember going into the dressing room and trying on something that I would have never been comfortable wearing before, and then that's when it kind of clicked for me, wow, so from there, I'm sorry, what was the question again?
How did, kind of focusing on your physical fitness at that time help you continue to navigate your self-care journey in that challenging situation mentally and emotionally? So one thing that you mentioned is it really helped to build confidence, even in other aspects of your life, right? So outside of perhaps the relationship or navigating relationships, within your career, you just mentioned, it helped you gain greater confidence within your career in the fashion industry. Any other sort of changes that you noticed on kind of a physical, mental, emotional level, any of those levels?
So as far as that, I had confidence enough knowing that I'm okay being by myself. So that's where I was trying to go with that. It just lost track of the button. Yeah, so I was okay. I felt like I didn't need to be in a relationship. I was okay being by myself and learning who I am and exactly what I wanted to do with my life. And then from there, like I said, I was in fashion for a few years until around 2018 was when Ashley, I've known Ashley since elementary school, but she saw some of my videos, and she was like, "Friend, can you train me?" At first, I was apprehensive because it wasn't something I thought about, something I wasn't interested in. But I went on ahead and tried it, and she lost 60 pounds. My very first client. Yes, let's give it up for Ashley. Yes. And then so she actually helped start my journey from there. And actually, that's how we kind of came up with the name with HiitMamaFit. I threw it out there, and she was like, "Yes, Yeah, that's it right there. So, because that's how we were training as well with HiitFit, and I would train her at her home. So, yeah. So that built the confidence with that as well. Like, I can do this as far as fitness, training someone. Yeah, so.
That's incredible. Thank you so much for sharing that part of your journey. And it's so interesting. It sounds like, you turned to fitness for yourself during a challenging time in your life, and you never know where one thing is going to lead to another, right?
Yeah.
You just never know where it's going to lead you. You just kind of do what feels best for you in that moment, and what you needed in that moment. And another thing that I often say is that a radiant life starts from within. So I wanted to reflect on that as you shared that one of the biggest lessons that you learned through that experience and your journey from there is that you're okay on your own, right?
Right.
And what that also says to me, and what I got from that, is of really understanding yourself better, like what is important to you, what do you need, kind of the differences between sort of needs and wants perhaps too, right? And so that's really beautiful. And then I love, community is so important. And that's something that you're really building through HiitMamaFit, as well as through experiences like what we have going on today with the HiitFit Festival. You've brought together so many experts and wellness practitioners, kind of building a community among the facilitators, as well as everyone who came out today to share this day with us. And through your own community, through friendship, right? Your dear friend reflecting to you. I think it's so important. I know I've certainly needed it in my own life many times to have those dear people in my life to reflect back to me something that maybe I didn't see within myself. And so your dear friend Ashley, I'm looking at her right now. I love that we're here live.
Yeah, she was like a reflection of me, so yeah, definitely. We had like the same journey, and I think that's how we poured into each other a lot. And we've grown a lot closer like during that time, because even from elementary school we had lost touch, and then that reconnected us back together, and we've been together ever since.
That's so beautiful. I love hearing that. And I love that phrase of pouring into each other.
Yes.
I think that's so important. And another just really big piece of community is and really, I do a lot of work with women through Radiant Living Institute. I always say I focus on working with women, although I don't work exclusively with women, but I have some women's groups that I facilitate as well. And just of like a sisterhood of just pouring into each other. And I think that's so important. And so I'm so happy to hear that.
What I say about that, because I've come to a point in my life where it's not about me anymore. I'm always thinking about the collective. So I say that a lot. It's not about me, it's about the collective, because it's more than me, it's beyond me now. So just kind of raising the vibration of everyone like around me, even when I'm like, not one, when you have your days of just like, I can't do this, but I find always that spirit in me to be like, all right, you know what, there's other people around me that needs to be uplifted, so so it's my way of raising my vibration back up, and that raises the vibration of everyone else around me, because, energy is real. I don't know, if some people believe in that or not, and some people do, they don't, but energy to me is real. And, people match energy as well. So if I keep my vibration high, then they will keep theirs high around me as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's almost, as you were sharing that, I had this sort of visual in my mind of almost this like cyclical effect of energy just building and building, right? Like I said a few moments ago, I truly believe a radiant life starts from within, right? We do need to take that time to connect with ourselves and at the same time connect with something bigger than ourselves. Right? So whether that's community, a higher power, whatever it may be for us, right? Realizing that there is more than our individual experience, right? Or whether that's nature. One thing we were talking about a little bit earlier before we started recording, we were just chatting and talking about movement and walking in nature, and that was something that you had mentioned to me as kind of your form of meditation, right? One thing is I do teach meditation in a lot of different settings, and a lot of people think that meditation is something that you can only do seated. But there's not. There's movement meditations, and You were mentioning how walking in nature is one of those things. And I brought that up, actually. I'm kind of digressing a little bit. But I brought that up more to, again, go back to that idea of, yes, taking time to connect with yourself and also connecting with things bigger than yourself, right? So nature, community, a higher power, whatever that may be. And it all continues to feed each other. So that's where I said that sort of cyclical visualization came to me of like just continuing to feed each other and like you said, raising the collective vibration.
Yeah. So I know when we were talking, I was talking about walking meditation because I'm not like a person that likes to do the seated meditation. I find myself, my mind always wandering a lot when I do that, when I try to stay focused. But when I actually was reading a book, it was actually about, I think, Buddha. And then I saw walking meditation and I was like, oh, this is interesting. So I never really thought about that. And like I was saying, like a lot of the creative ideas would come when I'm walking, or even like when I'm walking with a lot of like my friends and stuff, where we bounce ideas off of each other or just experiences off of each other. And also when I'm walking by myself, when I walk, I don't have headphones in my ear. That's what I told you earlier. I don't wear headphones. I listen to my own thoughts or I listen to everything around me. Because if I'm listening to music or maybe a podcast, which there's nothing wrong with that, but for me, it distracts me from my thoughts. And that's what I really like to tune into and like, okay, well, I need to work on this, or maybe I need to do this more, or, or maybe, any type of work-related thing, stuff like that. So it kind of stops the distraction and focuses more on me from the headphones and the podcast, the music and all of that. So.
Thank you so much for elaborating on that because, also one of the intentions with this show, Essential Self-Care, is to expose people to lots of different ways to practice self-care. And often, another thing I often will say is that during different seasons of our life, we may rely on different forms of self-care. And so it's really about building your toolbox, which is another amazing benefit of today's festival that you've put together because you've brought together so many different modalities of fitness and wellness and well-being to showcase today so that people can really get a taste of a lot of different things and experience it for themselves and see what works for them, And so I love that you shared and elaborated a little bit more of your experience with the walking meditation because, as I mentioned before, so often there's these things that kind of float around in media and social media particularly of like, and it's one of my biggest pet peeves actually, which is like, everyone just do this one thing and you'll feel better and it works for everyone, right?
Right.
And that's one of my biggest pet peeves because I simply don't feel like it's true.
Right, I agree.
I feel like it has to be individualized, right? And so one of those things, though, is meditation. And while I'm, a certified meditation instructor, I do teach it, I also teach that there's lots of different forms of meditations, and really anything can become a meditation.
Yes.
A meditation is just really choosing to focus on something for a particular period of time, whether that's choosing to focus on your breath, choosing to focus on your walking, right? And it's a practice of that for a given period of time. And, one of our thoughts when we were first talking about doing this episode was talking about mindfulness. So I'm just going to throw a brief definition in there of mindfulness too, which often gets tied in with meditation. Mindfulness is non-judgmental awareness of the present moment. That's the definition of mindfulness, non-judgmental awareness of the present moment. So being present and letting go of judgments of the present moment, whatever may be going on, right? And so anything really can become a mindfulness practice if you allow yourself to be present. So I do invite anyone who's listening to this show right now or after this recording, and anyone who's spending the day with us here really to, as you move about your day and these different practices, just noticing how you're feeling, what's coming up for you, without judgment, just really allowing yourself to be present with it.
So you want me to speak on mindfulness?
Sure.
Okay, so I never really paid attention to mindfulness, honestly, until this year. And I say that because I'm a real big spiritual person. Like, I'm into the numerology and all that other stuff. But so being that for me, this is like a 8-year or a karmic year, I really felt that this year. So anybody that know me know a lot of the stuff that I went through this year just alone. I feel like it was more crazy than any other year in my life. So it taught me the mindfulness to not sit in that. And that's what I found myself when I start to think like I would sit in something for a long time. And then I'm just like, no, I need to really pay attention to the moment and how to get myself out of that to focus on the moment and also the future. Because it already happened. I can't go back and change it. So what can I do now to move forward, to keep creating and keep thinking about the collective? Because then if I sit in that moment, I'm going back to thinking about myself. And so that's why I'm like, all right, Jazz, like, get out of that, go back and think about the collective and keep going on the mission that you were sent to do. So that's what I think about mindfulness.
Oh, that's so powerful. I love the language that you use there too, So one thing that I want to pull out from there is you found that when you're kind of sitting in that place, that really going back to the collective, going back to that, connecting to something bigger than yourself, right? Yes. The mission, the collective, the community, right? So that is huge. And then also just literally in the words that you used of sitting in that place versus, as you mentioned, walking meditation helps you become more present, helps you release that, right? And that's so huge because movement is such a powerful tool for connecting the mind and body and grounding yourself in the present moment. One thing I always say is the mind is often where? In the past or the future? Right? The mind is often sort of ruminating on the past, often the things that we feel like didn't go right more than anything else. Or thinking about the future, worried about the future, feeling anxious about the future, right? But where is your body at any given moment? Right here.
It's
right here, right now, right? And so that's where these movement practices, right? Getting into your body, it can be so helpful. I mean, it's helpful on so many different levels. I could go into the science of it, of how it, boosts your endorphins and neurohormones and all of that. But even at the most basic level, there's nowhere else your body is always here, right now. So getting into movement, whether that's walking or any other form of movement, or even just resting your awareness on an aspect of your physical body. One meditation that I often will guide people through is just noticing their feet on the ground. And you can do that anywhere, whether you're sitting or standing, and no one else even needs to know that you're doing it, but just noticing your feet on the ground. To help ground yourself again into the present moment.
Quick shout out to today's sponsor, Reclaim Your Radiance, Radiant Living Institute's signature coaching program designed to help you reclaim your worth, renew your energy, and restore your happiness in your life, career, and relationships. This 6-module curriculum has already helped countless women rediscover themselves through life's storms. From setting difficult boundaries within toxic relationships, to finding their inner strength and power while navigating divorce and co-parenting, to aligning their career and business with their authentic self, and to learning how to live for themselves again after their kids have left the nest. This program has been a guiding force for women to live unapologetically and shine brightly within their lives once again, or often, even for the first time ever. Experience the results for yourself. Head over to radiantlivinginstitute.com/reclaim-your-radiance to learn more and get started.
Right. Yeah. Even with mindfulness, I do want to say that it was a ego death for me. Like, I learned how to put, just like I said, an ego death, and tap in more into like my higher self. Because I felt like more was moving forward for me when I would always tap into that and not my ego, because the ego would have you being angry or anxious or worried, all these things, because it wants you to feel also safe. It always keeps you stagnant for me, that's what I think about the ego. So like I always try to separate the two and be like, okay, no, that's my ego talking. What is my higher self, saying? Because it would not say that. It wouldn't tell you to go do this or go do that. Because I feel like the ego doesn't allow growth. I feel like your higher self does, because your higher self will push you, to things that you don't want to do or push you to be, this great person. So that's what happened for me. And with mindfulness, the ego death.
So I kind of have a comment and a couple follow-up questions. So one comment, another way to kind of think of if this idea of sort of ego and higher self is new to someone, kind of one way that we also talk about it is like the small s self and the big S self, right?
Yeah.
But what I'm curious about is, because I have my own experience of this, but I'm curious your experience of it, and I think this may help many people who are listening. And I think this may be different for everyone.
Yeah.
How did you come to, or how have you come to sort of distinguish the voice of, and you sort of alluded to it a little bit already, but if you could elaborate perhaps, to distinguish the voice of the little s self and your highest self?
You said, how do I distinguish?
Yes.
So I distinguish it by if it's putting me in and it may be broad, but like in a low vibrational thought process. I feel like it doesn't move me forward. It makes me feel stagnant. It makes me feel stuck. It makes me not want to take risk. It makes me just feel, all of these low vibrational feelings. So once I feel that, that's how I know my ego is kicking in or is telling me, oh, don't do this or don't do that, because this might happen. So, but when I tap into, like I said, my higher self, that's when I know it gives me comfort in knowing, like, you can take risk and it'll be okay, like you'll be fine, so, and it'll propel you if you do take this risk. So don't be afraid to do it, because all it's going to do is just make you stronger. That's all it's going to do. I mean, it may suck at the moment, like, if you feel any type of pain. But like I said, that's where I sit and I think, and I'm like, I really believe that you're a creator of your reality as well. So if I want to be in pain, I'm going to be in pain. If I'm going to be angry, I'm making myself angry. Can't no one control my actions or my thoughts except for myself. So even if somebody come and say like they cuss me out or something like that, I'm in control of my actions, because if I sit there and I react to it, then they become my master. So that's how, I separate the two, because if I was to respond to it in a negative way, that's my ego, because I feel like I got to get some bars off, right? So, but I'm like, no, I don't want to feel like this, and I don't have to deal with this. So that's when my higher self comes into play for me. Yeah.
Oh, there's so much good stuff in there, Jasmin, that you just shared that I want to reflect on.
Yeah.
So one thing that came up for me when you shared that is it sounds like for you, one way that you can tell kind of the difference between your ego self and highest self is the ego self seems kind of limiting, and those things that will sort of keep you stuck and limited.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're tapping into your highest self, you feel more almost expansive. And then something else that I thought was really interesting is that you said that when you trust or lean into the guidance of your highest self, you know that everything's going to turn out okay. It's going to propel you forward. And even if things sort of, quote unquote, don't turn out okay, or there's problems or challenges, you know that's still for your highest good and for growth. And something that I heard in there is that when you tune into and tap into your highest self, you know that you'll always be protected and safe no matter what happens.
Right.
And what I thought was really interesting about that is something you had shared earlier, that the ego, you feel that your ego tries to keep you safe, but it doesn't work.
No, it doesn't.
It keeps you limited and stuck.
Yes.
But rather, when you take those risks, when you trust your highest self, your inner voice, you are ultimately protected and safe and supported.
Yes.
So beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And then I want to, we just went really deep.
Yeah.
And I'm going to kind of take it out, kind of pull it out a little bit, because you said something earlier that I'm just personally curious about.
Okay.
I don't know a lot about numerology, and you mentioned that this is the year of 8. Can you tell us about that? Just because I'm just curious.
So numerology has actually something that's still fairly new to me, so I'm still kind of like learning about it, but I understand that the universe is built off of numbers. So if, I don't, like I said, a lot of people are really not into that, but to me, everything is calculated, everything is built off of numbers. You can crack codes if you're really, if you really pay attention. And that's why the mindfulness, if you really pay attention to what's going on, dates, numbers, all that stuff, it correlates to a reality that you probably can't see because there's a veil. Or like I said, the ego is there stopping you from seeing beyond the veil. But it's a karmic year, so it's the number 8, like, the infinity loop. So a lot of things that people may have been manifesting or whatever, you're probably going to get it if you're really working really, really hard at it. Or basically it's like whatever you put out is what you're going to get back, whether it's positive or negative, So that's why people should be mindful of what they're doing, because whatever you put out is going to come back, and it may not come back at that moment, but it's going to come back. So that's, and this is the year where that really propelled. I don't know if people ever paid attention to maybe from January up until now, if they really reflect on their life of what has been happening, they can see kind of where that leads, whether their actions are reflecting on, that of what goes out comes back. And it might be tenfold, amplified this year. So, yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing and just kind of helping sort of fill my curiosity about that.
Yeah.
So kind of being mindful of time here, there's a couple questions I want to ask as we start to wrap things up. One of those questions is, from your experiences, from your journey, where you are now, founder of HiitMamaFit, working with clients on their fitness journey as well. What is, and I read a little bit of a quote from you at the beginning when I did your introduction, but kind of from your words, what is your hope, your intention for this collective community that you are building?
So I don't know if anyone, so my logo is a lioness. So if anyone ever pays attention to a lioness, they're always in a pack. They do everything together, so they look out for each other. They look out for each other's babies. They do all the hunting. They literally do everything, while the lion is really just the protector, and that's pretty much it. He's just kind of chilling and, just use me when you need me. But the women are literally doing everything, the female lioness. So that's what I think about, and that's why I came with that. And that's where I say it's beyond me. It's the collective, and if we do everything together, we'll be able to push this higher mission. And I understand, there is a lot of, I guess you could say I'm a leader. I don't ever like to, use that, because we're all leaders in this sense. But I'm not afraid to, push. I'm not afraid to fail and then get back up and do it again, So I feel like maybe that's why some people even lean on me for that, because I'm not afraid to take risk. And I'm here to show that if you take a risk, even just learning from me, you learn from it and you pick yourself up and go. So whatever you want to do that you've been the same thing with the ego, where you're like, oh, I don't know, I'm afraid to do this, I'm afraid. I'm living proof of do it, just do it. Even if you failed a few times, it's going to be a point where you get it right and the formula is going to work, So that's why I picked the logo of the lioness, to show that, and it reflects that in everything that I do. I never do anything alone. I'm always including everybody. And that's the purpose of the Social Fit Club as well, that I have every month, that everyone doesn't want to strength train, or everyone doesn't want to work out this type of way. So I'll go to different businesses and try out their business, because maybe somebody likes kickboxing or somebody likes aerial yoga. Everybody doesn't want to train like me. And that brings about the sistership and the friendship that is created from that. And I'm here to do it with you. It might be something I've never done before, like zip lining and stuff like that. A lot of that was our first time together. Even for Ashley, I cannot stand roller coasters. I can't, but when she had lost her weight, she wanted to get on a roller coaster. And she asked me, and I was definitely afraid. But I got on that roller coaster at Busch Gardens with her, and I said, don't ask me again. But I did it. I did it because she wants to. So everybody knows if you want to do something, I'm like that ride or die person. I'll do it with you one time.
One time, but don't ask me again.
Yeah, don't ask me again.
I love that. Thank you. I just feel so inspired just hearing you share that and share your journey. Thank you so much. And I'm so glad that you mentioned Social Fit Club because I wanted to bring that up as well.
Yeah.
I have yet to make it to one. I want to make it to one so badly because I always see you posting and sharing about it. And I'm like, oh, that looks like so much fun. Yeah. So I'm going to make it to one very soon. Okay. But I'm so glad that you brought that up. Just another way kind of bringing community together. And also, like we talked about earlier too, of just kind of like, the same thing might not work for everyone. So just, kind of exposing ourselves to new and different things and building our toolbox and learning more about ourselves and each other through the process. So I love that. There was something else I wanted to reflect on, and it's just like, I just lost it there, but that's all right. I'm curious also, one of the other questions I wanted to ask you today is, this is the first inaugural HiitFit Festival. I'm super excited about it. I know you're excited about it. Everyone here is super excited about it. I'm curious just kind of what is your vision for bringing this together today? What is your hope for everyone who is here today, right now, and those to come as the day continues to progress?
So this day is more of like a proof of concept that it can be done. It's an experience that hasn't been done at the oceanfront or to this magnitude, I guess, basically, because I wouldn't say that people haven't done like fitness events, but to this magnitude, and that it can be down in the resort area and it can work. So the proof of concept is definitely there, and to show the city of Virginia Beach that, hey, like if you back us, we can make this into something great and have it done every year and introduce this platform for all of the wellness practitioners and fitness trainers and in between. To capture that audience, and then use each other's resources as well. It's just beyond this. It's the networking aspect of it as well, so that we all can grow, because we can all use each other's resources. Like, there's no gatekeeping here, that doesn't help in the evolution of anyone, or like I say, the collective. So that's the vision that I see, just to keep growing. And then next year, me and my brother are already planning for next year. Like we're already thinking about that, and it's going to be bigger, it's going to be better. And I hope that whoever experienced it with me this year will be on that journey with me next year, and see what that looks like.
Thank you so much for sharing such a beautiful vision. And I'll tell you, I was driving here this morning to Virginia Beach, and right as I was like pulling up, could see the statue of Neptune over here. I could see the tent set up, and I was like, this is so cool.
Yeah.
Like, I just felt so grateful to be here, to be able to be part of it, to live here in Hampton Roads, where folks like you and your brother are bringing things like this and curating events like this. And I'm just so grateful to have been invited to be part of it. Thank you for everything that you do, Jasmin.
Thank you.
Is there anything else that you would like folks to know as we're just kind of getting ready to wrap up this episode?
The biggest thing that I want everyone to know is that, always trust your higher self. Always trust it. Even if you're afraid, just trust it. Just do it and just try it, because you won't believe the unbelievable things that will happen from that. And it's just nothing but a blessing. When you listen to your higher self, it's just a blessing, so that's my message to everyone.
I love that. I love that. And actually, your final message reminded me of what I had wanted to share a little bit earlier in reflection to what you had shared, which is I've been reading a bit about confidence, and specifically confidence in women lately.
Right.
I've been reading a book called, or I just finished up recently, a book called The Confidence Code, and it really looked at studying confidence in women, and that generally women are less likely to take risks, yet by definition, confidence involves taking action, doing, and taking risks.
Yeah.
And by definition, taking risks means that there's a chance that you might fail. Right? And so I heard that so many times in your story, just having the courage to not worry about the result, not worry if it's going to quote unquote succeed or fail, because you're always going to learn something, and just picking yourself back up and just going after it again, pivoting, and just always learning and growing and evolving.
Yes.
And so I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. So I know everyone who's here at the festival today knows where to find you and how to stay in touch, but for those who may be listening to this podcast episode at a later date, can you let them know where they can find out more about you, the work that you're doing, and stay connected with you?
Okay, you can follow me on Instagram at HiitMamaFit, HiitMamaFit, or you can visit my website using the same spelling, www.HiitMamaFit.com. You can also follow the HiitFit Fest page, HiitFitFest, for any updates on the festival. So yeah, that's how you can reach me.
Wonderful. And for anyone who's listening to the audio here at a later date, I will be including all of those links in the show notes. As for me, I can be found at my website, radiantlivinginstitute.com. I'm on Instagram and LinkedIn at Sheethal Ajmani MD. That's my first and last name, MD. And the podcast is Essential Self-Care on all major podcast platforms and on YouTube.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Essential Self-Care Podcast. If you like what you heard, be sure to subscribe, leave a positive review, and share this episode with someone you know. And remember, your free guide, 6 simple yet powerful steps to create your radiant life, is waiting for you at radiantlivinginstitute.com. Download it today.